Welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast, addressing all aspects of the digital enterprise, inspiring connection without boundaries and creation without limits. Thank you for tuning in. Here are your hosts, Thom Singer and Craig Brown.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Thank you so much for coming along on the journey of this show that is designed to be a resource for all of those who work in and around PLM. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is the forum for the exchange of ideas surrounding the tools, processes, and practices used across the product lifecycle. To learn more, visit us at digitalenterprisesociety.org. My name is Thom Singer, and I have the honor to co-host this show every week with Craig Brown. Craig is an industry veteran and former PLM leader at General Motors. Hey, Craig, how are you today?
I'm good, Tom. It's good to hear your voice. Looking forward to another interesting podcast.
You know, we always have interesting shows, and today we're going out a little different. We're not deep in the PLM world, but we're going to take some sort of conversations about modeling and planning in a new way, I think, today. I'm kind of excited. What about you?
So am I. Let's get Ryan introduced and let's have an interesting chat.
Awesome. Because every week, Craig and I try to bring interesting interviews and other ideas that are going to help all of our listeners enhance and grow their careers. And today we have Ryan Choura, and he is from Choura, an experience company. And what they do is they build some of the largest events in the nation. Now, when you say, wait a minute, Tom, what are you talking about? Build events? Well, if you think about events like Coachella or Stagecoach or the Albuquerque Balloon Festival or the U.S. Open of Golf, somebody has to be behind the scenes planning and modeling and making sure that when these events come off, nobody's surprised, that they are ready. And so that's what Ryan does. So Ryan, welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, I think it's, I love what you guys are doing. I love that we potentially have a scientific way of looking at events today a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. It doesn't matter what you do for a living. When you can plan ahead and model and prepare, it's going to make it easier down the line.
Yeah, you know, Ryan, when we first caught wind of your interest in being on the show, it was interesting to me. Now, a lot of our listeners are engineering or designers of some sort, and they build products, cars or airplanes or spacecraft. So a couple of the interesting guests we had actually build server farms. So we were talking to Microsoft and Facebook. Yeah. That was kind of intriguing. I never realized the degree to which digital tools were used for those industries. In your industry, the event execution, what kind of tools do you use? Just help our audience understand how similar you are to what we do.
Sure. So a lot of times we're walking into a total blank space, whether it's a parking lot, a huge field, maybe a venue. And as events have advanced, the venues get trickier and trickier, right? Like, you know, building something on the 25th floor of having 20 hours to do so. We built the largest tent in Hollywood for the Star Wars premiere. We built a tent structure that was 4 football fields long.
Wow.
And we had 18 hours to build it. And after the event, we had 14 hours to take it down. And so a lot of times when you're building an event, somebody doesn't realize that somebody has to go in there. They got to visualize space really quickly.
Right.
And in the past, you would just draw that out on a sheet of paper and you'd, you know, take some measurements with a walking tool or a tape measure. And now, you know, the utilization of AutoCAD or Rivet or SketchUp to begin to take this mental picture, putting it in and using Google Map or Google Earth. And, you know, are these things, I cannot tell you how many times that we've gone to build something and we get there and we go, it doesn't fit.
Right.
It doesn't work. And not just from a visual standpoint, actually, it doesn't fit or it doesn't work. And so our industry has really changed by the utilization of programs of what can be built and in those spaces.
So do you use some sort of virtual commissioning or a simulation where you can take the dimensions of the property or the venue and then confirm that everything will fit? And is that done with a form of a simulation? It might even include people, right? People moving in the simulation.
So we utilize a couple things. One is we again use a Google Earth. We utilize an AutoCAD, and then we begin to put in square footage requirements for an amount of people, how it would be laid out. Begin to put in, and I think this is where, again, a lot of times people don't think of the science behind an event, but the reality, and especially post-COVID, with more and more people talking about spatial requirement.
Yeah,
how much space do I have?
I'm no longer one square meter. I'm now 9 square meters in order to meet all the distancing requirements, right?
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is in an event is for an enjoyable experience, for someone to have an enjoyable experience, you really have to model all the way from I drive in.
Oh yeah, interesting.
What goes on from there? Where are restrooms? Where is power? ADA requirements, and so many of these things. And what's crazy about events is I'll get a call on a Monday, or I used to get a call on a Monday. Not right now, I don't get a call on a Monday, but I used to get a call on a Monday that said, we're building this for 1,000 people on Saturday. And so how do we get all of these things done? How do you model something in 5 days?
Yeah.
And this became really who became good in the industry, you know?
Well, your description reminds me of motorsports. Open wheel motorsports is where I was once upon a time in my career. And it was very much that way. You know, Sunday evening, Monday morning, you were getting the adjustments for the race next Saturday. And not only did you have to get there, because usually it was halfway across the country, but after getting there were adjustments you were making to the we were doing the control software. So it's interesting. It's a very stressful environment, I can imagine. So you mentioned COVID. We've been talking a bit about it on the show here, how people have had to adjust and you know, your business events, I mean, my goodness, they're canceled, right? So or delayed indefinitely. I mean, so describe what it was like. I mean, I was getting ready to go around the world and do some lectures, and all that got canned. You know, I was getting ready to get on a plane on February 29th. Well, and they called me on March 1st and said, no, you're not getting on a plane. You're staying put in Detroit. So
I make most of my living speaking at live events. And like 1 week in March, I watched like 15 events. I watched most of second quarter and part of third quarter just evaporate with all events being canceled. So you guys had to be just blindsided by this like everybody else. So
what was it like? And then what did you do?
Yeah. Well, the first word that comes to my mind, it's devastating because, you know, our company, we roughly had, 200 full-time employees. We've gone down to 16. In 120,000 square feet, we went down to 60. We had 30 trucks on the road. We're going down to 5. And so this immediately becomes devastating to the employees, their families, our industry. And then it's like, what the hell are you going to do next? And immediately we began to help hospitals build out triage, build out COVID emergency rooms, build out whatever we could do to help in this COVID. And I think at that time you were trying to understand how big COVID was. What did this mean?
We still are, right? I mean, it especially certain parts of the country. Now, Detroit was one of the first, but other places, there's another surge. And so your flexibility to go in and build something in a matter of days is probably going to be needed for a while. I'm afraid for quite a while, actually, maybe a year or two.
Yeah, and so we tried our best to do that, and to begin to help assist. That led us into testing. And to
you mean COVID testing?
COVID testing.
So describe that a little more. So that's got to be a layout problem, a traffic flow problem.
So COVID. So I would go to what's interesting is about every one of these, And again, I approach things from a spatial, I look at things at output. From a music festival to, the Academy Awards. How many people can you get in here and how do they have the best possible experience? Well, I'd go to these hospitals and I'd look at the way they're building them, and I'd start thinking about it as a patient experience. And I'd say, what a terrible experience.
Exactly.
but here's how I would change it. And, there's people coughing on people. It's just like you have to change this. And so that led to testing. And the most interesting thing about testing is, and I don't want to get into a political thing, but really what I found was cities and counties and states, they really weren't interested in testing.
Interesting.
They wanted
That's
to
sad.
They wanted to check the box.
Oh yeah, they're politicians.
They didn't want to really get everyone tested. And so we went out on our own. We spent 90 days perfecting the best testing model that we could.
Mm-hmm.
We launched it a week ago, and we will become one of the largest testing companies in the nation. And we did that by modeling our testing center over and over and over
Mm-hmm.
again to deliver the highest output. I'll give you some rough numbers.
Okay.
The average testing facility in the nation probably generates about 25 to 50 tests. I don't even know if I'd call that an average. That would be actually a larger testing site. You'll see in a parking lot, there'll be a 10 by 10 tent, some people standing there in some PPE gear. And when we looked at a city like Los Angeles, I live in Long Beach, and there's 500,000 residents. And we said if they test 1,000 people a week,
right,
it's
going to take forever.
It's going to take forever. So we realized that our models had to test 3,000 to 5,000 people a day. So the testing facility that we built will be able to handle, not just from a size standpoint, from how good is our Wi-Fi, how good is our internal programs, how many restrooms do we have? Do we have COVID restrooms? Do we have so we've modeled out sites that can handle 3,000 to 5,000 tests per day.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
And so this is interesting. You go from make it a great venue for a concert or an event like the Academy Awards to now make it a tolerable process to get tested, which is really important. And we do have mostly engineers, so I think we respect science and we respect nature. Nature's dealing with us a lot of curveballs here with COVID-19, and I think we just got to get on with what you're doing is wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful that you were able to switch your company, the skills you have, to providing something so meaningful. I don't think it's short term, my friend. I think you'll be doing this for a year or so until there's a solid vaccine. And especially Americans, the way we behave, it seems that whether we like it or not, we're gonna have more infection. The best way to understand it, if we're getting ahead of it, is through testing. And we need centers like yours where people can stay in their car, get their test, and also the area, whether it be Long Beach or the broader LA basin, they can do it quickly. And you don't want to do this piecemeal because you got to understand. Frankly, you'll probably have to repeat testing. The tests don't look that reliable from what I've noticed. So you'll be doing it once a month or something in order to keep a handle on the statistics.
Here's the question that I have, though, is that as a major event planner, what goes on in your brain to be able to say, yeah, let's pivot over here and build a testing center? How does that synapse happen in your brain?
I don't know how it happens, but I think you said something, that kind of the DNA of a company or the DNA of a person allows you to handle what potentially is in front of you. And I think, the DNA of our company was you constantly had to adapt. You learn to adapt to weather. You learn to adapt to last minute, to timing. So when all of a sudden somebody tells you, your business is gone, your business is gone. Everything you built over a 20-year career could potentially be gone. But you have a set of assets and you have a set of things you said, something really interesting, Craig. You said, how do you utilize your skills to good? In the event world, you sold cool. You sold cool for so long. Like, you want to be cool. You want to go to Coachella. You want to go to, the ESPYS. You want to go to the Academy Awards. You sold cool and glamour. And really, the world right now needs good. It needs purpose. It needs meaning. And I candidly think the event industry needed these things. The event industry was shallow.
Well, you're not shallow. I mean, helping with testing is just fabulous, and I get where you're going with your point, but it's just it's phenomenal that you've been able to switch and now bring something really important, regardless of what politicians want to check the box. It doesn't really matter. Just ignore them. We need what you're doing.
I believe we need it. When people look at how do you gather again, I mean, that ultimately that. The company that is now really focused on how do we get people to gather again. Well, the reality is you have to gather around trust.
Yep.
And if you don't have trust, you can't gather with people. And you either trust people like inherently, you trust people through some sort of membership process. You trust people by having inherent values like you do. Whatever those things are, it's about trust. Well, we think testing is a way to begin. I think the problem in America right now is we are allowing perfection to get in the way of progress. COVID, even with a vaccine, is going to exist.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
COVID even is going to exist with distancing. COVID is going to exist with so many different things. But what needs to happen is a form of trust, and testing is a way of creating a form of trust.
Well, yeah, and I sometimes am overly optimistic, but just for a moment, imagine what it will be like a few years down the road when we can finally get together in whatever the new environment is. Maybe there'll be new environment, meaning distancing and designer masks and all the rest. But imagine the events we will have. People will get back to, as part of the problem right now is people are tired of being pent up. And so they want to get back together. Unfortunately, it's not quite yet safe enough to get back together. And so we're seeing the surges in infection rates. But you're onto something, Ryan. It works that way in all commercial products. Once you build trust, then you get repeat customers. And whether you're in the car business or other businesses, it works that way. Once you lose trust, you really, it's hard, right? You sometimes have to just rebrand everything, right? And start over. You guys, on the other hand, you could say, look at the events we were doing before March of this year, and look what we did along the way to help get over this terrible challenge we all face. Now let's just get on with being human again, right? And enjoy events safely, and then move on to the next thing, whatever that is in our lives. So you're breathing easier now than you. Sorry for the analogy, but you're breathing easier now than you were in March. Do you see your company growing? Are you trying to hire back, or just steady state?
Yeah. So through the COVID testing, we've hired. It's a different skill set. We're hiring nurses, and we're hiring people that can administer testing and that type of thing.
Well, that's interesting. So you have employees or contractors that are part of the service of doing testing. Yes. They're actually collecting results. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted. So what else is happening to your business?
So our businesses, I think the event business will go into hibernation.
That's a good word. You'll come back.
Yeah, I think the industry will go into hibernation, and it's just who can survive hibernation. It's going to be a very cold winter, and you got to have a plan, and you also have to be willing to say potentially there's not a good enough plan to survive. You just don't, there's elements out there that are just so devastating to industries. I tell people, would you rather own an airline, a hotel, a casino, an event company, or a restaurant. They all sound terrible right now.
Well, yeah. And interesting, I came from the car business, right? So it's actually pretty cool to be in the car business because people will want to isolate. So much for doing things together. So bring those events, those things, into your car. You got Wi-Fi and everything else now, and go park your car on your driveway. You really don't want to go anywhere. You just want to enjoy the leather seat and enjoy the music or whatever. So yeah, it's going to change a lot of different things.
Craig, I'm not sitting in my driveway in my car.
Yeah. Well, you're in a beautiful part of the country. Where I am right now, I need to sit in my driveway in my car because I need air conditioning. It's really, really miserable here.
So Ryan, I am also part of the events industry as a speaker and a master of ceremony. So I feel every word out of your mouth. I feel for you. And I've had to do some pivots along the way to be able to keep myself going as well. I actually think that what you're going through, and like you said, it's horrible, the whole industry into hibernation. But I also think that for anyone listening who's not in that business, but everyone's career is always susceptible to some sort of a disruption. So let's take this back just a little bit to the people who are listening who, they still have their jobs. Some of them do. Well, some of them,
in fact, are changing industries, but yeah.
So what lessons can other people learn from what you've gone through the last 4 months?
Good question. I think the first lesson is have open hands. I think when you grip life too tight, you just don't steer well. You don't fly a plane by gripping the steering wheel as tight as you can, or whatever. There has to be a lightness, and I think that affects your psychology. I think that affects your attitude. I think that affects your emotional intelligence. I think right now people have to have loose hands. You got to have a looseness. You got to ride this in a different way. I think you also have to be able to provide a solution. I think not enough people talk about this in their life about what am I doing in my job? Okay, I work for 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day, however many hours you work, 4 hours a day. How much of your day is really spent solving a problem? I think we lie to ourselves. I think we want to sound so significant, but the people that are the most effective, the people that are the most called on, the people that are the true pros, they spend more time solving a problem than other people. No matter the industry, they get better and better and better at it. So loose hands, solving a problem, staying valuable. And I think that the next one would be my network. Who is my network? How influential am I in my network? I would say this. I always fight to be in the top 10% of any network that I'm in. If I'm in the event industry, I want to be in the top 10%. And if you're in the top 10% or not. I mean, that shouldn't be a guessing game. You either are or you aren't. And so I've treated the last 90 days of that. I know some people have done handstand contests and, they've watched more on Netflix. I've seen this as a breakaway play. And that's been my approach.
So we got a lot of engineers on the call. Can I take you back to something you said at the beginning about on the 25th floor, you had to set up some event. How the heck did you get the equipment on the 20? Did you actually use a helicopter or did you? I'm just curious.
Well, we've used cranes, not to
okay.
Before, but we've used cranes. But a lot of that is actually how you build the assets that you're bringing up the elevator.
Yeah, so you use the elevator, and
but you've got to make sure the assets are the right size, and you get them up there, and
now you're the Army, right? I mean, you're moving a facility from location A to location B, and getting to B can have those challenges. So
right,
more interesting parts of the digital universe, I think that. A lot of the tools that manufacturing plants use now, at least the big companies, they simulate flow, the flow of people, the flow of material, the flow of the end product coming out.
Right.
And I would guess you'll be doing more and more of that as well. I read one article. You're also helping out the restaurant industry, right? I mean, they're trying to figure out how to reopen, but they got to reopen with a different footprint, right?
They have such a challenging path in front of them, the restaurant industry that already works on very tight margins, very tight margins. And so you have these organizations that, are like us that are helping them, work out parklets, taking out parking spaces in front of their restaurant, maybe taking up the alleyway behind their restaurant to get people outdoors. And, they're just, restaurant owners are, they're fabulous entrepreneurs, but they've got a big mountain in front of them. And so our company is trying to come along the side of them and help them in any way we can, be able to keep capacity, keep distancing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think this would be an application of digital tools. I saw you had some renderings, some pictures of how the tables could be reorganized and then meet all of the separation requirements. Right. And I think a typical restaurant owner, they might see a cartoon of this, but they wouldn't think that they would ever use it in their business. Now, all of a sudden it's essential because even the flow of people come in over here, go out over there, right? How else do you guarantee people can stay away from each other? We go to some groceries where they've done that, and we've gone to some drugstores where they haven't done that.
Yeah.
And the drugstores are like, you would think of all places, they would fix this problem first, right? And so just the flow of material, the flow of human beings really matters, right?
100%. And not, again, you got to have a vision for it. You have to have a vision, and you have to understand regulations or laws or whatever. And again, our company, I think what is making us special and unique is that we are taking vision and we're taking the new standards of regulations and we're walking into space and we're saying, this is what it would take to do this.
Yeah.
To get to quicker answers and results.
Yeah. And it's got to be frustrating too. The regulations are somewhere between guidelines and guesses, right? And they're going to change again. The recent articles here in the United States, at least, have been about, is it really 6 feet? Is it really a mask, or is it worse than that? This vapor, ventilation, stay outside, get in a windy climate. Those are probably all good things. So anyways, Ryan, it's been a joy to chat with you. I hope the listeners out there, if you'd like to hear more of these kind of stories and insights, let us know. And with that, I'll hand it back to Thom.
Yeah, I mean, I like it when we interview people who are kind of out of our normal box, Craig, because I think the word I would have to assign to Ryan and what he's doing with his company and what they're trying to do to stay afloat is scrappy. And I think that that's what we all have to do, no matter what we're facing in our careers, is we have to find ways to get creative, to get scrappy. And, it's the old, if life gives you lemons, make the lemonade. And I think Ryan was a good example of that. And I also like the way he is using some of these simulation tools in other areas, both for the testing centers, with the restaurants, et cetera, instead of just designing where the tent goes for the big event. So I think that was a great story. So Ryan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you guys.
And hey, Ryan, on behalf of all the engineers and leaders listening, thank you. Thanks for staying in the game, and thanks for figuring out how to help with testing. That's actually one of the most important things to do. And so stay at it, build your business. It's going to be needed for a while. And then I look forward to some really cool party in Long Beach when this is all over, right?
Cool. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody who tuned in to listen. Please join us every single week for more thoughts, ideas, and information in and around product lifecycle management. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is the place for the exchange of ideas around digital manufacturing tools. Check us out at digitalenterprisesociety.org.
You've been listening to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Learn more about what you've heard here today at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Join us again next week for more connection without boundaries and creation without limits.